Hello everyone and welcome to our 8th tutorial for SQL 2008 Server Management Studio. Just a quick note, if you're not using 2008, don't worry. All this logic pretty much applies to just about any version of SQL. So 2005, 2008, 2012, and I believe 2014 is out right now as well. And I assume that they're probably going to come out with a 2016 sometime this year or next year. Who knows? So anyway, in our last tutorial, we left off we're performing an insert statement, or we're creating an insert query. I'm sorry. So we have all this data now in there. What happens if I want to update? Let's say I made a mistake. So what we want to do here is we want to use the keyword update, and then it wants to know what column, or I'm sorry, what table do you want to update? So we want to update this, and then we want to set something to something. So I want to update the error severity to equal 2 and then I want to use this date right here, because this date's pretty much the only unique identifier that we have, because error number is not unique, obviously username is not unique, and none of this is unique except for this error time. So let's go ahead. The only other thing that could be possibly unique is the error log ID, but I want to use the error time because that would be more realistic in the case that you don't have an ID or you'd messed up, which I always have IDs, but in some cases, if you're coming in to a database that's an old database that may have not been set up properly, you might have to dig to find unique values. And time is almost always a for sure one that's going to be unique, especially if they're using getTime function. So let's go ahead and use that. So let's say where error time equals, and I'm going to convert this to a string. So what we're going to do here is, what we have is the error severity here is null currently. And I'm going to go ahead and let both of these execute because I want to update and then I want to select anyway. So let's go ahead and let it run through both. So there we go. So first thing it did is it performed our update. It updated this column for us. And then I wanted it to select everything in there. Now, let's say that you want to select everything in here and you don't want to type all this out. There is an easier way. So we didn't cover this in our previous select statement. We'll go ahead and cover it now. And I will strongly urge you to never use select star in any store procedure for a billion different reasons. But for purposes like this of just simply testing and looking at data, using select star is perfectly acceptable. So what we can do is we can just say select star, and there we go. Now you can also see we're pulling back the ID field now, and we're seeing that it's skipping around a little bit because these values were probably not auto-incrementing correctly. Or maybe we might have removed one. Not really sure why it didn't want to auto-increment correctly, but it happens. Every now and then the seed skips. So let's say that we made a mistake on record 4. So let's go ahead and let's adjust record 4. And let's say that we want to adjust multiple things on this record. So I'll set the error severity, let's say, to 5. And let's say that we want to adjust the error procedure. So let's set the error procedure. Let's say it's going to use procedure 10. And that's just for that record. So let's go ahead and execute. And then let's verify that record 4 had those changes take place. Yep, sure did. And you know, honestly, I don't like this error message that says this is a test. So let's say I want to change all of those. Well, what we can do here is we can get rid of the where clause. We don't need to do that because we want to change it for everything in here. So we don't need to filter. So we can come over here and we can say error message. Whoops, wrong programming language. So we can come over here and I want to change that error message to say error 101. So now all these error messages are just going to say error 101. So let's go ahead and update. And let's verify that our change occurred. Yep, sure did. So it's very important when you're updating data and you're inserting and you're removing and you're doing all these things, you always want to select the data to make sure that your changes were performed correctly. I've seen it a lot of times where developers rush through work and they don't verify their work. So make sure that you always verify that whatever you're executing is actually working the way it's supposed to. Now these are all pretty simple, updates and stuff. They're not very complex, but as you grow your skill, these queries will become a little bit more complex. But you always need to check your work and you always need to check your data to make sure your data is coming out as expected.